You are watching the National News Desk, America's News Now.
The fundamental freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do.
The current vice president and the former president doubling down on their message with just 2 weeks until history is made. What the latest polls tell us about how the candidates measure up in the places where it matters most. Then top secret U.S. intelligence documents leaked on Israel's strategy in a long, bitter Mideast war. The State Department weighs in on the potential impact as Secretary Blinken kicks off renewed efforts overseas to restore calm in the region. And is the U.S. personal care market becoming more toxic? We investigate the billion-dollar campaign accused of making top dollar while making those buying the products get sick. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. We are now just a little over 2 weeks away from the presidential election, and the candidates, they are pulling out all the stops in those must-win states. Vice President Kamala Harris, she is making an aggressive bid to win over independents and moderate Republicans, holding a joint rally with Republican Liz Cheney in Pennsylvania earlier today.
We have the opportunity to tell the whole world who we are. And we have the chance to say, you know, we're going to reject cruelty. We're going to reject the kind of vile vitriol that we've seen from Donald Trump. We're going to reject the misogyny that we've seen from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Former President Donald Trump, meantime, is in North Carolina for a tour of hurricane wreckage, also a rally there in Greenville and some other events. Both Trump and Harris hope that the state will deliver them the win they need to take the White House. As the National News Desk's Matt Gelka tells us, the politics of the swing state could be made even more complicated by that ongoing storm recovery.
Obviously, we want them to vote, but we want them to live and survive and be happy and healthy, because this is really a tragedy. It's really something.
Former President Donald Trump back in the crucial battleground state of North Carolina, surveying the ongoing fallout from Hurricane Helene and criticizing the response.
I think it's a disgrace what happened with FEMA. What's happened with their rescue effort. Their rescue effort was almost non-existent.
The Tar Heel state and its 16 electoral votes are crucial to both Trump's and Vice President Kamala Harris's campaigns. The VP was in Greenville a week ago.
I have spoken to both state and local officials, both Republican and Democrat, to let them know we will be with you every step of the way.
And former President Bill Clinton campaigned for Harris in North Carolina over the weekend, along with her running mate Tim Walz.
We got a race to win, and we have to win it.
Polling in the state is incredibly tight, with Harris holding a 2-point edge in a Quinnipiac poll released last week. Barack Obama was the last Democrat to win the state 16 years ago in 2008. More than 1 million people had voted early since it began in North Carolina on Thursday. Voting made even more complicated as residents in western North Carolina continue to clean up after Helene ravaged the region.
People will bring us in if we don't have the vehicles. We might need an all-terrain vehicle, but we will get in to vote.
The slow recovery frustrating some. Some places have been without water for more than 20 days. Ex-user Matt Van Swol posted this devastating drone video Friday of the damage that remains, with part of his post reading, "Please don't forget us." Of the 7 battleground states, there are multiple scenarios that run through North Carolina. For Vice President Kamala Harris, if she were to sweep Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, she can clinch the election. But the same goes for former President Donald Trump. If he were to sweep those 3 states, he'll get to 270 and he'll win. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka.
All right, Matt, thank you. And the latest polls show the race still very close, with Trump and Harris now tied nationally. A new Washington Post Schar School poll of registered voters in the first half of this month finds that 47% support Harris, 47% support Trump. Among swing states, Harris leads in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Trump leads in Arizona and North Carolina, and they are tied in Nevada. As for fundraising, Harris's campaign brought in a record record $1 billion from July through September, outraising Trump significantly. But Republicans' spending on ad time in Pennsylvania and North Carolina from tomorrow through November 5th, well, it will exceed Democrats by around $7.4 million. New tonight, the identities of the 7 people who died in the Georgia dock collapse over the weekend has been revealed. All 7 who succumbed to their injuries were elderly. The youngest victim, 73 years old. 4 of the victims were visiting from Jacksonville, Florida. The harrowing events unfolded as visitors were leaving a celebration on Sapelo Island's annual Cultural Day. A team of structural engineers now investigating what made that gangway fail. Some roads are still closed in Roswell, New Mexico because of deadly flooding over the weekend. According to state police, at least 2 people were killed and over 300 were rescued after record rainfall brought extreme flooding. The city got almost 6 inches of rain on Saturday, an all-time high. Officials said this morning a nearby airport was still closed. 4 people are dead after a private helicopter crashed into a Houston radio tower last night, causing a huge explosion. The victims' identities have not been released yet, but according to investigators, the lights on the tower went out a few days ago. National Transportation Safety Board officials said they'd be at the site today to recover the helicopter. The Federal Aviation Administration is also investigating. And we are just learning the identities of the 2 Navy pilots who died in a plane crash last Tuesday. Naval Aviator Lieutenant Serena Doug Weilman and Naval Flight Officer Lieutenant Commander Lindsay Miley Evans were both 31 years old and from California. Their EA-18G Growler crashed near Mount Rainier in Washington during training, which a former Navy flight officer described as very rigorous.
It comes with risk and there's dangers involved. The operations of these squadrons do what they can. There's several programs in place to mitigate that risk, to include a lot of aircrew training.
The women were decorated combat veterans and had flown dozens of missions in the Red Sea earlier this year against the drones being fired by Houthi rebels in Yemen. The cause of the crash is being investigated. Jury selection has begun in the trial of a veteran who put a man in a fatal chokehold on a New York City subway. Daniel Penny is charged with second-degree manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. Prosecutors say his actions were purely negligent, even if he did not intend to kill Jordan Neely. Penny's legal team says it was self-defense. The trial will last about 6 weeks. A federal judge is considering whether to pause a Louisiana law requiring all public school classrooms to display the 10 Commandments starting on January 1st. A hearing was set for today over a June lawsuit from parents. Opponents argue the law violates separation of church and state, and proponents say the commandments are not just religious but also historical. It's not clear when we'll get a ruling. This week, kids in Buncombe County, North Carolina will return to the classroom, and it comes nearly 4 weeks after Helene ravaged communities across western parts of the state. Schools plan to welcome students back this Friday after announcing power and internet has been restored to all 45 schools affected, while drinking water, we understand, will be delivered. One Asheville father says getting his daughters back to a structured environment is a much-needed step towards normalcy and healing.
They miss the routine, and I think we miss the routine too. I'm sure I speak for most parents here. Having a routine for our kids and keeping them in a safe environment is everything, and it really made that clear after Helene hit.
The district says it will have more counselors on staff to help kids cope with the disaster. Coming up, with new caravans, thousands of migrants making their way to the United States border, why they say they're coming now. Then thousands of unionized mental health workers are on strike against Kaiser Permanente in several cities, what these employees are demanding from the company. And later, many cosmetics companies advocate for breast cancer awareness, why there's growing doubt that they actually want to help. We'll be right back. Another example of the impact of the American election can be seen in the major uptick in migrants from around the world now headed to the United States. The National News Desk's Christine Frizzau brings us a closer look at several caravans making their way to the U.S.-Mexico border.
The latest group, which could be as large as 2,000 migrants, follows at least 2 others just this month, with some saying they're coming now because they're worried about what will happen after the November election. This Venezuelan migrant saying whoever wins should not close the doors to us and should give us support because we are all going through a bad time. He, like so many others, fleeing an oppressive government and looking for a better future, but headed for a country where the majority of voters say they want stricter border policies, which both candidates have vowed to implement if they win.
Those who cross our borders unlawfully will be apprehended and removed and barred from re-entering for 5 years.
I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
Donald Trump and his supporters putting a spotlight on migrant crime, including by the group Tren de Aragua. San Antonio, Texas, just one of the latest cities to have apartment complexes taken over by members of the Venezuelan gang. Their presence expanding, with more and more cities bearing the brunt of the violence, drug use, and rampant human trafficking.
This gang is already well entrenched in Venezuela and countries outside of Venezuela. We're literally importing current active gang members into the country because of this administration's open border policies.
At the same time, we recently got access to the numbers from U.S. Customs and Border Protection on illegal crossings for the month of September. At 54,000, they were the lowest numbers since 2020, largely in part to the Biden administration's restrictions for asylum seekers. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Christine, thank you. Another damning report of the first assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. The bipartisan House task force investigating the July 13th shooting concludes the incident was preventable. Lawmakers say there was a lack of planning and coordination between the Secret Service and its law enforcement partners before that rally. A final report will come out in December. 5 men exonerated in the 1989 Central Park 5 case are suing former President Donald Trump over comments he made during last month's debate. Trump said the men pleaded guilty to crimes connected to the rape of a woman who had been running in Central Park and that the victim had been killed. The lawsuit says the men never pled guilty and were cleared of wrongdoing and that the victim did not die.
Fighting for dignity. Fighting for dignity. Fighting for justice. Fighting for justice.
Tonight, more than 2,000 unionized mental health care workers on strike against Kaiser Permanente in Southern California. Members of that union that represents 19,000 healthcare workers picketed outside Kaiser facilities today in Los Angeles, San Diego, Anaheim, and Fontana, seeking an increase in salaries, restorations of pensions, and increased staffing. Kaiser says it has presented the union with an offer that includes an 18% wage increase over 4 years and called the strike, quote, entirely unnecessary. This is the second strike among Kaiser therapists in a little more than 2 years. The United States is sending another $400 million in aid to Ukraine. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made a surprise visit to the country today, just hours after a Russian drone attack on Kyiv. Austin discussed Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's plan to win the nearly 3-year war, which requires permission to use long-range missiles to strike Russia.
We've moved heaven and earth to help Ukraine, and that inspiring coalition of more than 50 allies and partners continues to stand united to provide your country with the security assistance that Ukraine needs to prevail.
The new assistance includes more munitions, armored vehicles, and anti-tank weapons, but no long-range missiles. Tonight, the President of the United States deeply concerned by the possible leak of U.S. intelligence documents that detail Israel's planned retaliatory attack on Iran. News of the leak surfaced over the weekend. The Pentagon is investigating if the top secret leak was the result of someone on the inside or an outside hack. Despite the worry, the State Department says it won't be a focus of several meetings Secretary Blinken has lined up in the Middle East in the coming days.
I certainly don't expect it to have any bearing as it relates to the Secretary's, not only his travels, but the objectives that the Secretary is bringing to this trip.
Blinken's 11th trip to the Middle East since October 7th is expected to be a renewed effort to bring calm amid a war that runs the risk of escalating just ahead of an anticipated attack by Israel on Iran. And we have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America, and we begin with football fans meeting the Republican vice presidential candidate before a game in Wisconsin.
Packers fans wetting their whistle and enjoying a pregame bite at Kroll's West received quite a surprise 75 minutes before kickoff when Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance walked in.
I was kind of thinking I saw like the dogs walking around the extra security, so I did see it. Saw something coming. Yeah, baby!
Vance received a warm welcome as he served and drank a little beer behind the bar.
He seems like a down-to-earth guy.
After Kroll's, Vance made his way to a private tailgate filled with Republican supporters at a home backed up to Lambeau Field's east parking lot.
Totally awesome. I was so surprised that he was going to come to this.
I mean, I've never been to Lambeau Field. I'm a long-suffering Bengals fan, which...
The line outside of Cheyenne High School in North Las Vegas stretched as far as the eye could see, with people waiting to hear from former President Barack Obama.
I think that he will deliver the message that we need to hear.
Well, I'm hoping that he can clarify some things that he addressed with the black men.
Obama has garnered some criticism with recent comments towards black men and their apparent lack of support for the vice president. This voter believes those comments are warranted.
He wasn't talking to every black man. He was talking to those who needed to hear that. And those that are complaining about it, they needed to hear it again.
Just before 8, the former president addressed the fiery crowd.
We do not need to see what an older, loonier Donald Trump looks like with no guardrails. America's ready to turn the page.
So a lot of it is I think convincing people who sometimes feel like the vote doesn't matter or it's all rigged or whatever that actually the vote does matter.
After hosting a town hall in Philadelphia on Friday, billionaire Elon Musk took the stage at Life Center in Swatara, answering questions from hundreds of former President Donald Trump's supporters.
How Pennsylvania goes, I think, is how the election goes.
Unsurprisingly, Musk took any chance he could to bash the Democratic Party.
It's bizarre and hypocritical to claim that Trump is somehow a danger to democracy when what happened with Biden being removed as the candidate was incredibly undemocratic. Yeah.
But he also emphasized that Americans must come together to save their country.
But if America is not strong, if the West is not strong, then nothing else matters.
Coming up, what's being uncovered about toxic ingredients in personal care products and how much is being done to make them safer. We're back in just 90 seconds. Every October, you see the color pink in honor of breast cancer awareness. The industry of personal care products like makeup and soap can be quick to capitalize on pink campaigns. The U.S. personal care product market was valued at $73 billion last year, and it is only projected to grow. But a growing body of research shows many of these products contain high levels of toxic chemicals, even ones that can cause cancer. Lisa Fletcher reports.
Every 2 minutes, a woman in the U.S. is diagnosed with breast cancer. October brings out pink ribbons and marketing to raise awareness. But some of the products designed to make women feel beautiful may harbor a toxic secret. Remove the lid or press the pump on any number of personal care products, and what you'll often find are the dangerous ingredients that cancer prevention advocates are fighting against.
Breast Cancer Prevention Month brings out a lot of companies who piggyback on this wave of empathy and interest that the public has. But is some of it misleading?
Some of those same companies are actually poisoning people with the chemicals in their products and including chemicals in their products that are linked to breast cancer directly.
Chemicals like formaldehyde, coal tar, benzene, and cadmium, known carcinogens that many women are unknowingly slathering on their faces and bodies. Like PFAS, a set of toxic forever chemicals sometimes used in lipstick to help it glide onto the skin. Parabens, which can be found in shampoo, and phthalates, often in scented lotions, all linked to cancer.
Unfortunately, in our country, the regulations are very weak.
Breast Cancer Prevention Partners CEO Suzanne Price says the U.S. is failing when it comes to safe beauty products. The European Union has banned 2,400 ingredients from personal care products because of health concerns. The U.S. has banned 11.
Right now, there is a huge trend of young girls at that puberty age wearing lots of makeup and using lots of personal care products. What you let your preteen daughters use as they're going through puberty, that could all have an effect on their breast cancer risk later in life.
But learning what's actually in the products isn't as simple as reading a label. You see this word all the time, fragrance. Under existing product laws, that word can be used to hide thousands of chemicals, which could be toxic or carcinogenic. In a 2018 study, 3/4 of the problematic chemicals in personal care products were fragrance ingredients.
Oh, it's very serious.
Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky has been fighting to clean up the personal care products industry for decades.
We're not going to be suckers here. We are not going to be buying products that are going to hurt us.
Introducing 17 bills over nearly a quarter century. The only legislation on the subject to pass was in 2022, expanding the FDA's authority to regulate cosmetics. Have you seen any definitive action?
The answer is no. I'm sure that it is overburdened, the Food and Drug Administration, to get it done, but that's not a really good excuse.
Absent pressure from Congress and regulatory agencies, companies are continuing business as usual.
It's so hypocritical. If these companies are serious, then they have to look in the mirror and they have to make a decision that they're not going to put out products that actually could contribute to those illnesses.
For Spotlight on America, I'm Lisa Fletcher.
Lisa, thank you. Right now, President Biden is bestowing the nation's top artists with the most prestigious of awards. Coming up, who's getting that honor and why? Right now, President Joe Biden is presenting the National Medal of Arts to several Hollywood A-listers. 20 individuals and groups are getting that prestigious award this year, including hip-hop artist Missy Elliott, actor Eva Longoria, and directors Spike Lee and Steven Spielberg. 19 people are also being honored with the National Humanities Medal, including several awarded posthumously, such as chef and author Anthony Bourdain and singer Selena Quintanilla. The awards recognize contributions to the arts, those who have deepened the nation's understanding of the human experience, helped to broaden citizen engagement with history and literature, or helped to preserve and expand American access to cultural resources. Congratulations to those awardees and their families. Quite an achievement, quite a legacy. That does it for this edition of the National News Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.